Hello. So it's Tuesday, the 19th of March, first thing in the morning before markets have opened. I wrote this report last night. Have energy markets now bottomed? And I'm going to work through 35 charts. And basically, it's easier for me to record this commentary. If you click on the link with the report, you'll be watching this commentary than it is to type up all the notes. And I cover crude oil, gas markets, European power, carbon emissions, and coal. You can click on each of these products to go straight to the analysis, but I do recommend you work your way through the report with me. It's an argument, and hopefully you will find it very clear. This is an Updater client-only report, so if you're a user of Updater Enterprise, please keep this to yourself. This is your Updater advantage. I do this for clients. It's not just a service. I'm here to serve clients, and I speak to quite a lot of you about various points in the market at many times, and something, I feel this is significant, so I want to record this and share it with you, but please keep it to yourself. What tends to happen is that someone passes this out to someone who's not a client, and then guess what? Because they're not a client, they just pass it on around the world, and straight away you lose your advantage. And if you're not a client and you just happen to have found this some way, then please become a client. Doesn't cost a lot. It's only around £10 a day. It's not an awful lot to have this intelligence and a full service proposition. I write the reports every morning, of course. Yesterday, everything was bullish in my energy report, and I expect it's going to be the same today, looking at how the charts ended last night and all the targets. So all I can say is please keep this report to yourself. I produce this, I do the work for you as a client, and it's not something I just do for everybody for free. So on LinkedIn, 10 days ago, I ran this poll. 445 energy traders voted, and 27% said that the market had bottomed, and 73%, around 3/4 of the market, said that it hadn't, that actually we would go lower. This was how the chart looked then, and I found this really interesting. By the way, I've recently joined Beta Group with Trevor Neal, offering in-house training where we do a lot of sort of direct training, and that's just something I'll talk about at the end. But cheers, here's my Beta Cup. Cheers to Trevor. So have markets bottomed? And so this, for me, this was really interesting, and I did a post on LinkedIn saying to my 32,000 followers, I was saying, I think this is interesting because so many people are bearish still, that means that there's more people who are there to turn bullish. So you have to be worried. If everyone was bullish, then you'd be a bit worried because there were people left to turn bearish. It's the balance in the market. So I reckon if I ran this poll this week, and I may well do that on LinkedIn again, I would find these numbers have shifted quite significantly. We'd be closer probably to 50-50. But the key thing is today I want to just work through the analysis. And there's 35 charts, and I just want to share this with you, and hopefully it helps you in understanding the significance of what's going on. So what got me interested last night was the fact that we closed at a higher high. I just, looked at the market. We're up 7%. Well, there've been lots of days where we've been up 7%. The significance here is that we closed at a higher high than the previous spikes that we'd seen intraday just several weeks back, so a week or so ago. And so that structure there, the higher low, the higher high, is really significant. And people say, oh well, so what? If we look back to March last year, we had this spike high to 1, but then we fell to a lower low, meaning that the buyers there have been negated, and we fell to a lower low, and then we went to a lower high, and then we made an even lower low. So this is different, and it's spotting that. And if you look at a chart like this, I've been looking at charts for 40 years. I look at a chart and I see that straight away. So it may not be something that you notice straight away. But when we do get basing patterns, you do see this higher lows, higher highs, higher lows, higher highs, and then it starts to be a case of lower high, lower low. So you just see it all the time. And for a lot of people who are not seasoned at looking at charts, that may be a little bit harder to see. So I'm going to start with crude oil. Last week, I mentioned that Brent crude had activated a new upside target. I've been saying to clients for ages, watch this $84 level on Brent crude. We broke through there. This happened on Thursday last week. We broke through there and we activated this upside target. This was the buying thrust that gave this target, and that was given at around 82. And then this new thrust in here. Again, these targets spot the thrust. Remember, you just press the T key on your system and it will produce these targets. And basically, we've got two targets. It's train tracks. It's two targets increases the validity of the target area. So it just says we're more likely to get here, let's say twice as likely to get here, because we've got two targets. Those targets are in train, and that's the break. We've also broken above the cloud, and we've also got an ascending triangle. And the rule of thumb on an ascending triangle is that the height of the triangle is the move that you would expect to see. So it looks like we're going back to sort of this October high into the high 90s. We will probably get a pullback and new targets. That's how the targets work. But this target now to the downside can be discounted. And that's because we've moved above the cloud, we've got new upside targets, and people say, well, that target didn't work. Well, it was working until we got to this low. This little one in here was met, but the big one, the big mama, if you like, that did take its time. So that is now discounted. We are now looking at that picture. So Brent crude has broken out of this range. It's running above the cloud. This is the 1% stop loss. You can do this on any chart. Stops looking pretty good. And we've got a target 288.94. Let's say 89, another $2 higher. And that stamp, and we've stamp on the chart. If I was looking at an old-fashioned chart book like I would have been back in the day, I would have stamped that and said, that's a buy. The verdict is that the crude oil, Brent crude, has bottomed. So that's really quite key. Notice how this previous target was met, given back here at just under 83. That was met at 86. So these targets have been met. The downside targets were being met too, but this is really now the key. So WTI, this is the daily chart on WTI. New upside target last week as well. Two targets are better than one. We're above the cloud. So the verdict here is stamp. This one has been met too. So crude oil is bullish, and the key thing about that is that crude oil, of course, is a very big driver for the energy mix. It's it's the big mama of energy, and so it would be hard to imagine Brent crude heading to $100 and gas and power and carbon and coal prices not reacting. So this is a driver. So let's look at gas markets, and gas markets are a little bit more complicated. And so we start with US nat gas, and here the picture is a little bit less clear. So we are below the cloud still. We've got a downside target not yet activated. This is a roll adjusted chart. We've got an upside target, but we are below the cloud. So we do just need to be aware of that. And if we look at the 60-minute chart, and again, I cover this in the morning call, it was bullish yesterday on the very short term 1 minute and 10-minute charts. I suspect it's going to be again this morning bullish, and we see here that we really need to break this 177 level and get to this 196 target, which is already activated. We'll probably hit resistance at 183, 184 and $2, but the reality is this chart is just starting to get through the cloud here on the price. It's not looking as bullish as some of the other charts. So it's a little bit harder to say US nat gas has bottomed, and the same is true of LNG, where this is less clearly traded on exchanges, and at the moment, it's not really lifting off the floor. So US nat gas and LNG are probably the I would say the two charts that are the least clear of all the other charts. So we now get to Dutch gas TTF. And this is not how you expect to see the chart, and that's because it's inverted. In the old days, we used to pick up a piece of paper and we'd hold it up and then turn it up the other way, and we'd look at the chart through up the other way, just to see it the other way up. And this is actually TTF turned up the other way, and it helps you address any trading bias that you have. And you look at this and you go, I look at this uptrend. Is this trend now breaking to the downside? Is this a head and shoulders? If that is, that's the height of the head. That suggests we're going here somewhere. Is that a bearish looking chart? And if you find yourself saying, yep, that looks like we've hit the top, hit the previous resistance level, then what you're really saying is it's a bottom. So sometimes a top is easier to spot than a bottom. It's good to look at things the other way up. And so interestingly, 2250 was the level we saw in early June last year. That's the level we've found the floor this time. We had a big sell-off to get to that level. Here, the sell-off has been a little bit slower, but interestingly, the same level, and that looks like we're crossing. So this is a very interesting thing just to do. I'm also going to look at the seasonality, because we saw there that June, and I think a lot of the reason why people will have said, no, we're not found the floor yet, is because they expect the floor to happen around May, June time. And this is the last 10 years, all laid on the same chart. It's the seasonal function and updater. And, really what's interesting here is that we did bottom mostly around this time. Around the end of May is when it tends to happen. We've seen it happen as late as July, and we have seen it happen earlier. So, if we go back to some of the pre-COVID charts, we were seeing it in February, March time. So it's really interesting. And this black line is the average of the two. So, is this the bottom now, or this is the average? Are we going to go back to test these lows? And I think that a lot of people are looking at the seasonal and just know in their heads that gas markets in Europe tend to find their low point around May, June time. This year, I think it could be early. And that is driven by that higher low, higher high situation. This is the storage levels for the whole of Europe. You can see when storage levels were very low. I mean, I show this because people say to me all the time, but it's all about storage levels and weather and temperature and all of those things. Well, that's all in the chart as far as I'm concerned. And here are the storage levels. They're a bit higher than they were previously last year, but the reality is we are back to sort of pre-COVID levels, and that just does say that gas prices are not going to go to those previous peaks. But we are in the cycle now, probably in the year where gas prices start to rise. So just interesting looking at that. That data comes from EIA into Updater. I run on about 10 different data sources with an Updater. You can run on Bloomberg, Icon, Trayport, Montel, and dozens of different data sources. So it really doesn't matter where the data comes from. Here, for example, this data is now Icon. That last chart was EIA, all coming in direct to Updater. Here we see the higher high showing through, and this new target. We've got this downside target, so that is still there hanging over us to 15 euros. But we do have this upside target. And again, here we saw the low point. We're back at that same low point. That was around June last year. This year it's just earlier. And then we had the higher low. Here we've got the higher low, so really significant. And the fact is, it looks like we will hit some resistance on the daily cloud. No big surprises there. If we can break through the 3150 level, this target is negated. It comes off the chart. All of those sellers are wrong-footed, and now we start to see new targets kicking in. So it is still below the cloud there, but if we look at the 60-minute chart, it's really pretty clear. Targets have all been met. Downside targets were met here. Watch for new downside targets. We will get them. And especially on the 1 minute and 60-minute charts, you will have days and we have potentially some sharp pullbacks, but the new general trend is up. And so that's really significant. Your mindset should change from being bearish on energy to being bullish on energy. And the whole reason for putting this report together and recording this is to tell clients you need to be watching markets have changed. And that's my objective here, is just to show you how things have changed. So another stamp here. Yes, Dutch gas front month has bottomed. If we look at the seasonal, interestingly on the seasonal chart, this target was not activated. So I watched the different time periods. Some clients will often message me saying, "Oh, what do you think of the differences in these two charts?" And I'm very happy to look at charts with clients. And we see here again that we're breaking to new highs. We will probably hit some cloud resistance, but the reality is we didn't activate the downside target. So the higher low, higher high is here as well. And this is looking at the 60-minute chart, again breaking to new highs, closing higher last night. Verdict, stamp, this has bottomed. So really significant there as well. I notice here on MBP, this is UK gas front month. The target is actually through the cloud, so I put a 1 there, and it's really burst through those previous levels, so that's also bullish. Downside target was met, but interestingly, not a new downside target like TTF, so this is looking pretty bullish too. And again, smashing the previous high that we saw a couple of weeks ago. So again, stamp, this is also bullish. This has bottomed. We're in a new uptrend. This is Summer Gas UK, and here we do have a downside target, a little bit less clear. We did close at a new high last night, so that's quite significant. Not really much higher, but the interesting thing is we do have a target, and again, the pattern of the chart is that we have bottomed. So MBP, pretty much UK and European and UK gas all have turned a corner and are in new uptrends. So here what I've done is I've overlaid, it's very simple, you can use the overlay function in Updater. I'm overlaying forward curves onto price data. So the price data is coming from Refinitiv Icon, or LSEG Icon is now called, and here's the trading range, here's the new trading range. So previously we were sort of trading between 5 and 20 euros. Now we're trading between 20 and 50 euros. Just basically we're in a new trading range, new paradigm. And you'll notice how the front of the curves, so this is the curve, today is the green one, or yesterday. The blue one is 150 days ago, so when we just had that little mini peak in October, and then 470 days ago when we had the peak in early 23, and then going right back to even higher levels in 2022 when we had the Russia-Ukraine fears. You're just peaking prices, and notice how the curve really lifts at the front, and a year out or 2 years out, but going further out, it doesn't change that much. And I guess the message here is it pays to spot the bottom, which you can only really do retrospectively. There's a saying that top pickers and bottom pickers become cotton pickers. There may be people who've spotted this recent bottom, but they may have been buyers all the way down that trend. So buying the bottom generally is a bit of a mug's game. But once you can see a bottom, you can see it retrospectively, and that's what we're doing today, is we can now say, yes, there's a bottom, it's now a new uptrend, it's a change in what's going on in the markets. Now I've got here, curves are not a predictor of price. This is the price that people are prepared to pay forward for gas now. And what's really interesting is if you can see targets that take you into territory well above these curves, look at your weekly charts, start watching for targets taking you well above these curves are going to move up. But anywhere in this area here, is the arbitrage opportunity between what people are prepared to pay and the price projections that you can see in the future. And that's the name of the game in energy trading, when you can see prices are going to be higher or lower, but higher in this instance than what the forward market is projecting. And that's really key. So I put here, are you a producer or a consumer? If you're a consumer and you're in an uptrend, you want to be buying forward because it's only going to get more expensive. And if you're a producer, you want to be holding on to your production because you're going to be able to sell it for more money going forward. And this is the balance between supply and demand in the market. In a downtrend, if you're a producer, the prices are falling, you want to be selling your forward production all the time in a downtrend. And if you're a consumer, you want to be holding off because it's only going to get cheaper. And this is the whole idea of the balance between producers and consumers, utilities and consumers of power and gas, and that's really understanding how the market works. So if you're trading, you'll be looking at the shorter term, but really for the longer term players in the market, this is now really significant because these curves are going to rise. They're going to rise a lot at the front of the curve and a little bit more at the back. And in fact, I've zoomed into the back so that you can actually just see, in 2028, this green one is now, gas prices are at a low point there. And you were having to pay as much as 42 euros previously. Now, you can get it, as at the low points that we've seen recently. So, that's a bargain probably. And certainly one to watch. And the uncertainty as you go further out in the curve just shows that you can't get it that cheap. But really, this is really, really interesting territory. If you're buying gas and power forward, you need to be thinking about the fact that we're in an uptrend, and now it's only going to get more expensive. Now, it may fall off again, and next year we go lower, but there's no real clear indications on where we'll be in a year's time. But what we can say in the coming months, because of that high, low, high, high, that in the coming months, energy is going to get more expensive. So that's gas markets. Just to recap there, US gas and LNG, not so clear, and they're going to be the ones that we're watching to just see. But I really can't see them bucking crude oil going to $100. And obviously, European markets, UK NBP and TTF are now looking bullish. And so, yes, they have bottomed and we're in a new uptrend. So European power. So interestingly here, we didn't make a new high last night's close. I suspect we will very soon make a new high. May even happen today. But, the interesting thing here is here we had the low, the high, but we didn't get the lower high, higher low, higher high. Here we've had the higher low and a higher closing high. So this is looking pretty bullish too, and it's pretty hard to see that gas is going to do one thing and power is going to do another. So this is looking pretty bullish. A move through this sort of 83.30 level is pretty key, and as I say, I think that's going to happen pretty quickly. And if we look here, downside target here that was given all the way back to around 200 euros to 45. All right, we only got to 70, but you'd be forgiven if you sold at 200 euros and you saw it get to 70. So realistically, that was a great target, even though it didn't quite get met. All the other targets on the way down did. Got a new upside target. This is the latest target, so we've placed a little bit more on that, and it's above the cloud. So that's on the daily chart. And we look at the 60-minute chart. It's very clearly bullish here. We see last night's closing candle. This is the 60-minute chart, closing above the previous close on the candles. And 83.30 is the level we need to get through, and the targets are suggesting we'll do that. And in today's morning call, I'll be covering the 1 minute and the 10-minute charts, and I'm sure there will be targets taking us through those levels. So really quick, the updated verdict here is that we have bottomed. And then we see French power. This is the Cal, not as clear here. This is the 60-minute chart, but it's hard to see that it wouldn't follow German power, and the same with Italian power. So we're expecting those to follow suit, but the German power is obviously the dominant contract. Nordic power, again, not making new highs, not quite as clear. But and then if we look at UK power, we do have this new upside target. We are crossing through the cloud. So the verdict for UK power is that this has bottomed as well, and we are going to see moves higher. So realistically, European power markets have bottomed, and they're in new uptrends, and that German power is going to be the one to watch. So looking at carbon, it's less clear than gas and power. Again, at closing higher high. The price target is above the cloud. It's not quite as clear because we're not making a new high, but again, I think we're going to be pretty hard to see crude oil and gas and power all starting to trend higher and carbon going the other way. And, we are just waiting for a break of the 62.80 level upside targets. Again, this downside target now is looking like it is being negated. We would negate it above 80 euros. We've got work to do to get above that. And we do see these sharp counter trend moves in carbon. But the reality is, this is probably looking a bit better. And if we look at the 60-minute chart, well, the targets say it all. We need to break 63 euros, and there are big upside targets here. So that looks like it's going to happen, and we're above the cloud and we're trending up. So the verdict on carbon is stamp. Yes, we have bottomed. UK carbon, the chart has been a little bit less liquid, although it's become more liquid recently. Downside targets here off these two selling thrusts, but they are now starting to look a little bit historic. And we've got new upside targets waiting for this upside one to be activated, but realistically that is starting to look pretty good too. So bullish there. Do have a little downside target here, but we are above the cloud. We are breaking into new high territory. Got an upside target to higher, 6% higher. So again, we're going to stamp that and say, yep, carbon all round is looking bullish. Coal, last of all. In fact, I messaged Trevor Neal last night, my new partner at Beta Group. He's got 40 years experience in technical analysis, as have I, and we both, saw the same things. And it's really encouraging when I just sort of said, is it just me, or am I thinking these markets have turned? And he said, yeah, looking at coal, this is in a new bull market. We come off the bottom, and we are seeing here this new target waiting for activation above this sort of 110 level. We activate a target all the way up to the high 160s. That's some 50% rise. These downside targets were given way higher. They were pretty much met, nearly met. And quite often when you don't get to the target, that is sort of bullish confirmation that we didn't quite get to the targets, as point and figure speak. And so now we are just crossing the clouds. So this is looking pretty bullish. The verdict here is that we have bottomed as well. So really significant there that we have seen that. Now it's a little bit less liquid. If you're watching this on OTC, you've probably got some better targets. So the key thing here is that on all of these things, bar probably US nat gas and LNG, everything has turned a corner. Last night's close, highly significant. So hopefully you find this helpful, that there's a seminal event that you can see with me and say, okay, we're now in a new paradigm. Got to watch for those higher lows holding. So, and do keep an eye on the shorter term targets. But for now, it's gone from a state of looking to go short for now looking to go long. If you're a purchaser, you want to be buying forward. This is the change in markets. How long it will go on for, we'll just have to keep watching it and watch the targets. But this is really key. I do stress this is a client-only report. If you've managed somehow to get this report and watch this, please become a client. It doesn't cost a lot, about £10 a day. You get my intelligence, you get the system, you get hand holding every day, you get the targets every day, you get the calls for the day. And if this doesn't play out, that this is a new uptrend, you'll hear it here first. So please become a client. And for those of you who are clients, I hope you find this helpful, and thank you. It's because you're clients that enables us to be able to do this and serve you. Bye for now.